Hey guys, it's Savvy, and I am here today with day 3 of the Strike Back Videothon. It was started by That Bookie, G Swizzle Books, and Ben Sanders. I have all their videos linked below. And the small YouTuber that I'm talking about today has to be Get Me a Library. She's really amazing. A young, I think, British woman. She does super in-depth reviews. I really like her reviews for either books that I've already read or books that, like, I want to know what happens, but I'm not super interested in reading. But, like, I'm curious about them because she just goes so in-depth that it's like, I don't know, it sounds like, when you have a friend who just, like, is so passionate about something, and you're like, oh, like, I have friends who are super into Supernatural and Once Upon a Time, and I've never seen either of those shows, and they will just, like, go hog wild telling me about it, and I love that. I love hearing other people's passions, and so that's how her reviews go. And then right now, what's really cool is she's taking the Disney movie and then the original fairy tale and comparing the two, and I love watching those, and it's super fun, and she gives you a little review of what happens in the Disney movie and then the true story, which I love because I think we all have our favorite Disney movies, but we all forget some of them as well. So that's really cool. I'm coming at you today with my favorite fantasy reads for day 3 of the Strike Back Videothon. It's a hefty, a lot of books. I love fantasy, and I'm going to start with these ones because I forgot them. I have not finished this trilogy. I haven't read the last one yet. I read the first two. The second book I didn't like quite as much as the first book. The first book is like the most amazing thing I've ever read. It's so good. So good. I would recommend it. I would recommend the whole trilogy. There were just a couple things in the second book, and I think too, it's really cool and political, and I love that because you don't often get that in fantasy. But this was I live in the US, and this was during all the beginning of the Russian collusion interviews and things, and that just kind of stresses me out. And so I think reading about politics and then having that going on, and spending a lot of time with retired people who talk about that a lot, it was just a little too much. But I'm so excited to finish the series at some point. The next book is The Princess Bride. I love it. I think it has a little bit more in depth about the characters than the movie, but there are certain lines in the movie that come straight from the book. I personally, you want to get the abridged version first off. William Goldman abridged it, and he gives you a little snippet of why or what he took out or what, like, it's pretty funny what he takes out. He's like, yeah, so in the original, he goes on 10 pages explaining exactly what she put on in her suitcase when he already said 3 shirts and pants, or, whatever, those sorts of things. I didn't absolutely love the preface that he wrote, the preface. I don't know how to say that. But I usually tend to like those better after I read the book anyways, but it's like, okay, there's the beginning I didn't really like that much, and then the ending's really sweet because he talks about reading this book to his son and his grandson, and that's just adorable. The next one is The Hobbit. I'm not the biggest fan of The Lord of the Rings, but there's something about The Hobbit, especially the very beginning, like the first page is just so magical and wonderful, and I love it. Oh, this is like intense. The next one, of course, is Uprooted. I've talked about that a few times on this channel. I won't bore you. The next is one that I just finished. I have a review of it. It is called Dreamcatch by Emma Berg. This is a self-published novel. And it's really good. It's really interesting. I thought it was really good. I may have been impressed just because I know her personally, and I was like, wow, that's like a really well thought out idea, but I genuinely love this book, and I'm really, really glad that I got it. And the next one is, oh my gosh, the Bartemaeus trilogy. This is middle grade. I love middle grade. I need to get back into reading it. And this is the Amulet of Samarkand. It's the first one in the Bartemaeus trilogy. He's this really funny, like, goblin or demon. And then, like, there's, like, this wizard who's, like, trying to control him, and Bartemaeus is kind of just like, bah! And I don't know, it's really funny. He's silly. Okay. And then the next one is also middle grade. I don't have it with me, but it is The Golden Compass, his Dark Materials trilogy. It's just amazing. I'm in a book club, and we are rereading it, and I'm just all the happy little butterflies. I love that story. And then, of course, on the other side, Harry Potter. I love it. It's a good one. It's a good egg. The next one, it's fantasy, but it's not high fantasy. But it's almost like magical realism. It's beautiful, though, and I'd recommend giving it a shot if you like fantasy or if you don't like fantasy. And that is The Night Circus. It's just so good. I went ahead and tabbed. The circus itself is its own character, so I put tabs every time like the circus was in it, as well as the human characters. It's really good. Another one, I've already talked about it. Carvel. I love it. I think it's fun. And then I have my Nook. And then the next is anything by Patrick Rothfuss, the King Killer Chronicles. I have not read the second book yet. The third book is not yet out. I'm working my way through the first book again, so that I can read the second book, but I get nervous. I'm like really excited though. So the first one, of course, is The Name of the Wind. I'm getting pretty far along. And then I've also read The Slow Regard of Silent Things. So good. And there's another novella about Bass, his friend, and I'm so excited. At some point I'm going to buy that and read it as well because I love it. Okay. And next we have another magical realism book. This book is interesting because it's almost a collection of short stories, but there's also a narrative, but some of the stories don't fall into the narrative, but they're beautiful, and this is one of my absolute favorite books. I bought it like for $1 at Barnes & Noble. It was on super clearance, and I think everybody should read it. I love it so much. I would recommend skipping the first chapter if you do decide to pick it up, and then going back and reading it because it is a little problematic. The older I get, the more I realize. However, I think it's amazing, the book, and the first chapter doesn't really bother me. It's just there's potential sexual assault. She never says that she's raped, but it also doesn't sound like consensual sex. But the other stories, there's not that in it. And it's not super violent. It just doesn't sound, reading it as an adult, I'm like, oh, that's actually not cool. So just skip the first chapter and then read the rest and then go back to the first chapter. And that is Rosie Little's Cautionary Tales for Girls. Once again, it's very much not a high fantasy. It's a lot more magical realism, but I love it. Super quick, super easy. And I just love this cover too. It's so cute. And that book, it's got my back. I love it. My next pick is one, I'm just going to show you a few of his books, and that is Neil Gaiman, any of his books. I have Stardust, Neverwhere, and the Graveyard Book right here in my hand, and then I have, oh, well, you can't see it. It's on the shelf that you can't see, a bunch of his other books stacked up there. I love Neil Gaiman. Stardust is one of my absolute favorite books. So is Neverwhere and the Graveyard Book. They're all amazing. And then the next is one by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and that is Good Omens. This is such a hilarious book. It's about the apocalypse, but it's also just like hilarious, and you can literally read it. It's pretty thick. You could read it in 1 to 3 days, no problem. I like to read it in the bath and just like read, half of it one night and then the other half another night a week later. It's just such a good book. And then I have another short story collection, but they're not, the reason I'm choosing these for fantasy reads is because there's just something very fantastical. And with this book, there's actually, I think, 3 or 4 short stories and then a novella called, the book is called The Djinn in the Nightingale's Eye, as is the novella. And it's just really fantastical and amazing. And one of my favorites, so The Djinn in the Nightingale's Eye is amazing, and it's about a woman finding a genie, and that's like my dream for my life. And there's also a story, though, about 3 princesses, and it's about the oldest princess and her journey. And I have 2 sisters, and the way she describes the princesses, it's like Barb, Al, and me, like all 3 of us. And I just loved that. Anything with sisters in it, I love. And the fact that it was 3 of us and the birth, like it was just in order, our personalities. I love it. Okay. And then last but not least, we have Discworld by Terry Pratchett. These are actually the only 3 I've read. Equal Rights, More, and Soul Music. They're so funny. Death is my favorite character, I think. So I really want to read like The Hogfather, where he essentially becomes like Santa Claus. Uh, excuse me. Oh no, I've also read The Light Fantastic and ooh, another one. I love The Light Fantastic as well. A lot of people will tell you not to start with that one, but I think you should. I love it. I thought it was so cool, and I listened to it on tape while I think I was driving to LA or San Diego, and it was just like this amazing journey. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. It was really fun. But Discworld is just such an interesting world, and essentially what Terry Pratchett did was he just took all the mythology and all the creatures that he liked in our world and just like put them on a world, and then the world is um, a disc on some trees, no, on elephants that live on the back of a turtle, and that's kind of what called the Great Atuin, and that's what and I really want to get like a little pet turtle and name it Atuin. But anyways, but that's like why it's the Discworld, and that's what the Light Fantastic is all about, is them like figuring out why the turtle is acting the way she is. It's so fun, and they're funny and they're kind of outrageous. Oh, I've also read the one about sports. Comment below if you know what I'm talking about, but I seriously cannot recommend these more. I'd recommend reading two, one right after the other. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. Because they're just the best. They're just great. All right, well, I think that's all I have to say. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wait, oh, and once again, Get Me a Library is amazing. She's so cool. Her videos are just so in-depth. I love it. And she's just so passionate about books, and it's just nice to, I mean, I guess we all are, but I just like that booktube's a thing. It just makes me happy. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, week, month, year, and I'll see you later. Bye! Oh, and then I have to hit stop. Oh, and if you're wondering why I keep doing these live, it's because my editing software is messed up. I know I keep saying that, but I know that there's maybe going to be some new people seeing this, and so I don't want to like have people be like, oh, why are you always doing it live? It's because I can't edit. That's why. All right. Bye.